Gabriel. So we'll still be going to we'll be starting the introduction to HTML today. So what is HTML? HTML, the full meaning is hypertext markup language, and it is a standard markup language for creating web pages. So every single text that you see on every single website online is an HTML code. So HTML describes the structure of a web page. So there is a structure of a web page that is used by HTML, and I'll be explaining that in this video. For example, now on VS Code, this is the basic structure of HTML, and the first line is telling you doc type. The second line is telling you that the HTML language is English. The head sector section and meta chart set is telling you about the character set that we'll be using. Viewport is the size and how you should scale to your device. Title is the name of the file. The closing tag of head and body, closing tag of body and closing tag of the file. So that's the basic description of an HTML file. So we'll be using Devlab playground to run codes, and that's how we'll be using it throughout the course of this learning. So HTML has series. It consists of series of elements, like the heading, the link. We'll be explaining that very soon. So HTML label pieces of content such as this is a heading, this is a paragraph, this is a link, and etc. So let's move to the next page. So the next page is asking what is an HTML element, and it's telling that an HTML element is defined by a starting tag, some content, and the closing tag. So you see that this is start tag for heading, this is h1, end tag for heading h1. So the opening tag does not have the slash, and the closing tag has the slash. So for example, now let me write that code here. H1, my first heading. Oh, I did not follow the file. And always remember, you have to follow the file arrangement before you start writing any code. Remember that. So H1, my first heading. So I run it, and you see it displays my first heading as the H1. So that's why it actually works. You define what you want to write with the tags. So you see some elements have no content, like the BR element, which means break. The BR element, you don't need to add anything. They are empty elements, and they don't have an end tag. For example, now the break element just means to break the line and go to the next line. So it does not have any content that needs to be there. It's just to break the line. So there are nested HTML elements, which means these elements can contain other elements, and all HTML documents consist of nested elements. So in the next tab now, we're explaining about nested elements. So as you can see now, the HTML elements that can be nested means elements that contain other elements. For example, now this this example below contains body body element, H1 element, and P element. Understand? So it is inside another element. They cannot exist without that element. Understand? So it's like this is the parent element, and this is the child element. They have to be the child has to be inside the parent, because without the parent it will not work well. So explaining that example above, the HTML element is the root element and it defines the whole document. It has a start tag HTML and an end tag HTML. You guys can see here HTML and close tag HTML. So it's inside the HTML element that there is a body element. So you have to understand the arrangement of the HTML elements. You have to understand how they follow each other. Is doc type, then language, then heading, head tab, head tag, then closing tag of head. Inside head there has to be meta and title, then the body, then the closing of tag of the HTML. So you have to memorize this arrangement because this is very important, and this is how your HTML file should go. So let's move to the next tab. So I'll be explaining the examples of HTML elements in this tab. So we'll be explaining the body element. The body element defines the document element. It has a start tag, body, and end tag, body. So the start tag starts here, body, and the end tag ends here. So let me add that p tag to this place. See, my first paragraph. You see, it runs either using your phone or your other device like your laptop. This playground is responsive on all devices. So either you are using your phone or your laptop, you can still code. So don't have that mindset that you can't do it without your laptop. So just follow the steps that I'm taking and I'm explaining to you now, and you understand it. So the H1 element defines an heading just like this. If you like for example, if you are typing a book, this is heading, the big letters, the big words, and P element defines a paragraph. It has a start tag P and end tag P. So if you want to type the normal font for typing in HTML, you use your P tag. Understand? You can use the P tag to write compositions, comprehensions. Like that's the normal text tab. Like that's normal text tag. I mean, to write. And some HTML elements will display correctly even if you forget the end tag, but don't forget the end tag. For example, now let's test this with our p tag. Run. You see, it still displays without the end tag. So so now we so and you see it still runs and it works. So don't forget the end tag. If you open your tag, remember to close it. So let's move to the next tab. We move to HTML attributes. HTML attributes provide additional information about HTML elements. All elements have attributes. Attributes provide additional information about elements, and they are specified in the name. They are specified in the start tag. Attributes usually come with a name or value pair, like name equals to value, and that's where, and it is the a tag that has that kind of. So the a tag defines an hyperlink. What's an hyperlink? An hyperlink is a text that when you click it, it takes you to another page. It loads and takes you to a page. It takes you to another page entirely. That's an hyperlink. So it's just a normal text, like a normal text like this, but you don't know that when you click it, it takes you to another page. So that's where the a tag works, and that's about it is links. So let me add that to this. Let's see how the a tag works. We'll move forward now and I'll explain more about the a tag. See, so when you press www dot legacy by Gabriel dot com .ng. And yeah, you write when you in the is in the first in the opening tag that has the value that you put the link. You understand? That's how it works. You put the link and you close it. You just like, okay, let's just write legacy by Gabriel. Understand? So when you run it, it displays this legacy by Gabriel. And if I press this link, it will take me directly to the page. Understand? So whenever you write a link, it takes you directly to the page. So for the sake of our class, I won't be diverting to another topic. So moving forward, moving to the image attribute, and after this, I think we'll be stopping in the next few tabs. So we can we'll continue in the next class. So the image attribute, how does it work? The image attribute is used to embed an image in an HTML page. Understand? If you want to embed an image, that file has to be in different way, either as an absolute URL. What's the meaning of URL? It means uniform resource locator. Yes, uniform resource locator. And your file has to be either an absolute URL or relative URL. What's the absolute URL? Is an image in simple English that is not in your folder. Understand? When you are coding it, your image has to be in your folder to load. But absolute URL is telling that okay, it's on another site entirely, another place. That means it has to be online. Understand? For it to load. There has to be an external link entirely for it to load. That's an absolute URL. But relative URL now is telling you that okay, I'm on the same folder as your code, as your file, as your website. Understand? So I would advise you use relative URL to avoid broken links. For example now, okay, you carry link from google.com, for example, and they are already Google decides to change their domain name to maybe google.ng, and your own link is still google.com. Your site can just scatter because of that small mistake. So ensure to use relative URL to avoid broken links when training domains. We'll move to domain very soon, but not in the next one or two chapters. It's an advanced topic. So we're moving to the width and height attributes. The image tag should also contain the width and height attribute, which specify the size of image in pixels. Understand? The size of images are in different metric conversion different metric conversions. Like we have percentage, we have point, we have pixels. Understand? There is percentage, that like 100%, 80%. There is ratio, but that people don't really use that. There's proportional form, and there is the pixel one, but that's the most commonly used one, pixel. So for example now you put this image. See, the reason I'm not running any of these images in this page is that I told you that you always use relative URL. And one thing is that you cannot add the image to this playground for now. Understand? For now you cannot add it, and very soon we'll be releasing another one that you can add it and it will be very easy. But for the sake of this class, we won't be doing that. But very soon when I'm moving further, to be able to do all that. So you add the width and the height, and it specifies the exact size of your image. If you want your image to be in square, you put the same thing, 500, 500, and it will be a square. But once it's different, you know what it is, it's a rectangle. So let's move forward. So the alt attribute specifies an alternate text for an image if the image cannot be displayed correctly. Either is in the wrong part, slow connection, or for accessibility functions like screen reading. Understand? That's where the alt attribute comes in. And for example, now if I write, let me just copy this and paste it, and you see how it works. If I copy this, so we'll be copying and pasting this, we'll be copying and pasting this here, and we'll run the code. So we'll see how it works. You see now, it will not display the picture because the picture is not is I wrote a relative relative URL. A relative URL does not like takes you to another, it's just a slash, then the image, then the file. But sometimes you don't need to put most times you don't need to put the slash once it's the same folder. But since it's not in the same folder, it won't work. So let's move forward to another type of attribute, which is the style attribute. So that's how the image works. So moving to style attribute now. The style attribute is used to add styles to an element. Understand? Such as color, font, size, and so much more. Actually, the way people use the way people add styles to their elements, they use another language called the CSS, called in full meaning cascading style sheet. That's the meaning of CSS. And after the HTML, that's when we move to CSS because you need to first understand how to write the text before you start designing it. But for the sake of this class, we'll be explaining the style attribute. So let me show you what this means. Copy this. If you copy this and paste it here and you run it, what happens? It shows you a red paragraph. Understand? Because you stated here style and you put the value, which is color red. If for example now if I change this to blue and I press run, the color also changes to blue. I can also change it to any color I wish to. I can change it to yellow, and it will also change to the yellow color. So that's how it works. You just put the style, the color, and so if it's font, you can also add the font size and every other style that you want to add to it. But to make it easier, after the HTML, you'll be learning the CSS, and that's when you can fully style your work without stressing yourself. So in your HTML, you must always include the lang attribute. What's the meaning of lang attribute? Is language attribute. And that's why I said HTML lang equals en. And that lang equals en means language is equal to English. You understand? This helps search engines and browsers to understand the kind of language you are writing your HTML. You can write your HTML in any language. You can write in French, in Chinese, as much as it's still HTML. Sometimes they add control code to the country code to the language code to define the type of English you are writing. You understand? You can write English in US and in UK. You can also write it in even in Nigerian, but don't do that. Just write EN to make it simple. Simplicity is best. Don't try to complicate your work by testing some things that you don't need to do. Just keep it simple. So moving forward now, moving to the title attribute. Yeah, this is the title attribute in the P. So the title attribute defines extra information about an element. The value is shown as a tooltip when you over the element. What's the meaning of over? For example now, you see, when I put my mouse on this page, it comes up. I'm hovering over it. I'm not clicking anything. I'm just moving around it. That's the meaning of hovering. So let's copy this now and paste it here. Let's see how it works together. So when you run it, it shows you when you hover on it, it shows you see I am a tooltip. It's as simple as that. is telling you more, is giving you more information about that paragraph. So always note that in HTML, write your code in small letter. You can write in capital letter, you can write in small letter, but our advice, always write in small letter, that is lowercase. Always write your HTML attributes in lower case. So let's move forward. So at Devlab, we suggest that you should know about the you should always quote attribute values too. Like the quotation mark you add here, you should also understand it. Understand? Because if you don't quote it, it's not going to work. That's one thing about HTML. You have to order. See, one slight mistake can scatter a lot of things. So you have to take your time and be patient while writing your code. So you should also understand the quotes. And at Legacy, we recommend using quotes in HTML. You understand? They are stricter in other languages like XHTML, even though that is not really useful again because most web pages are now written in HTML and that's what everybody uses. So don't bother yourself to study something that might not help you. So if you see now, you see this is a good example and this is a bad example. So let me show you with this. I not put quotes here and I run. What will happen? It won't lead anywhere. Understand? The file will not lead me anywhere and that will not work. So you should always understand that every single arrangement of your HTML means something. Also, in P title, if you don't add your quote too, nothing will work. So people ask, should I use single quote or double quote? Always use double quote. Single quotes can also be used sometimes like as an alternative to double quote, but in HTML we use double quote, not single quote. So moving forward. So that's just one chapter and we'll be ending here for now. That's just one chapter. So the summary of the chapter is that all HTML elements can have attributes. The href attribute of A specifies the URL of the page the links goes to. The src attribute of img image specifies the part of the image to be displayed. The width and height attribute of img provide size information for images. The alt attribute of img image provides an alternate text for an image. You see, alternate text. The style attribute is used to add styles to an element such as color, font, size and so much more. The language attribute of the HTML tag declares the language of the web page and the title attribute defines some information about an element. So that will be all for this chapter. So in the next video you'll be understanding more about HTML. So take your time this week and understand this simple chapter that we have gone through because the higher you go, the harder it becomes. So you have to understand the simpler ones first before moving further. And also don't forget to always use Legacy Devlab for your coding experience to understand more about coding and always recommend Legacy to your friends and every other person around you because education is the best legacy and this is the legacy, a change that begins with you and I. So let's start it today and learn and earn. So this is the legacy. I remain your humble host, Gabriel. Thank you for viewing this video, and I hope to see you next time. Bye.